Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stop Being Polite, the show where we recap the real world homecoming New Orleans. This is episode 5 recap. The episode title is called There's Something About Jamie. I am here with Kari, and we are here on behalf of Silent Podcast, where we are anything but silent. Kari, how are you doing today?
I am proud right now. Do you want to know why, Katie?
Is it me?
It's because of you.
Oh my God. Tell me
So,
more.
the reason why is because we play this video at the beginning of the podcast, and it is very tricky to line up. There's been many a times where if you watch on YouTube, there's like us sitting there for a second and then it starts. And Katie crushed it.
Did
So
I couldn't tell. I was
I
like, did I
I
hit
think you
go
did.
live and then it like didn't go live? I don't know. I thought maybe I pressed it too early, but I'll watch back and
You
I'll
might have
see.
pressed it too early, but I think pressing it early is better than pressing it late.
Okay, I'll take it.
I
Thank you.
also learned something last night, and I should have told you this before the podcast. Jason ends the podcast with the video thing as well, which I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, we don't do that. I've never done that." And
Oh, well,
so,
maybe we'll do it today.
yeah, we can leave it up to us. Like
That
that's
sounds fun. We'll see how
our
we're feeling.
choice. But when he said that, I was like, "Oh, what? You do that?" He's like, "You're not playing the song?" I'm like, "What do you mean play the song? What song?"
Oh, maybe we'll spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, because there's like a new section, and like not to get like too meta on this shit, but or like inside baseball, but there's a new section of like background music. So I thought that's what he was talking about. I'm like, you use that? And he's like, no, the video again. I'm like, oh, okay. So there we go.
Oh, interesting.
But how are you,
Interesting.
Katie?
I'm good. I mentioned to you before the podcast I ordered lunch today and I ordered a Diet Coke to treat myself. I usually don't order lunch in the middle of the week or on the weekends either. But today I was hungry, so I did, and instead of a Diet Coke, I got a Coke Zero. And I said to Carrie, and I think I might tweet this too, is that if there are two types of people in this world, people who think Diet Coke and Coke Zero are the same, and people who are right and think that they're not the same. And they're not the same. I'm sorry, they're not. So right now I'm just drinking my Coke Zero, wishing it was a Diet Coke. But other than that, I'm good. It's better than not drinking anything, I'll
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
I have learned that you do need to have a liquid for podcasting.
You definitely
Otherwise,
do.
you're
It's
doomed.
important. It's important. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into this episode. There's something about Jamie. This episode, and I know I mentioned this to you too right before we went live, but it felt like closest to a filler episode, in my opinion, that we've had so far. And I don't really mean that in a bad way. It just felt like we didn't get into anything too deep. We kind of kept it like light and easy. There were still like very many cringy moments, but like not offensively cringy until the end. So
Mhm.
it was seemed like it went by pretty fast. Feels like there's not a ton to like dig too deep into, but I think it was still an enjoyable and fun episode. Maybe not fun. I don't know if it was fun. It was good. It was a good watch. It's always a good watch.
Yeah, I liked that we got a little bit of a different perspective. I had said it before on one of our, or probably even last episodes. Like, we've been very light on Jamie content. We've been very light on Kelly content. And like, Tokyo is Matt content and like kind of
Yeah.
Tokyo. And we've had a lot of Melissa, which is great. I'll
Mhm.
take more of it. We've had a lot of Danny, which is great. I'll take more of it. We've had a lot of Julie, which like, that's enough. Let's stop. We've done enough with
Yeah.
Julie. So I appreciated that we were getting more of a Jamie focus. Unfortunately, I just felt like there wasn't enough to focus on with Jamie, like it
Right.
kind of fell a little flat, but it wasn't not enjoyable. It was just, like
Yeah.
there could have been more.
Yeah, I agree, and that to me just says, like, there's just not that much to Jamie. That's kind
Yeah.
of, like, how it feels, like, there's nothing really to dig deep on because he's just kinda there.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but I guess we'll talk about it. So, we open the episode with a Y2k party, they get a box at the door.
Excuse me, it's YKS.
Well, okay, so I have that in my notes where Julie thinks that the balloons say YKS, and to me, I was like, "Yes, Julie, yikes." Like, that's, like it's a short way to say yikes, and I wanna say yikes to you at all times. But everyone's like I think Tokyo specifically was like, "That's a 2." Like, he kind of was like, "Are you kidding me?" But yeah, they realized that it was Y2K. They all apparently knew it except for Julie, and, they kind of like do a recap or a deep no, I don't want to say a deep dive. It wasn't really a deep dive into like what Y2K actually was. Like the I don't really know how to explain it. Like it wasn't really a conspiracy theory. I guess it was like a concern.
I
of
think it was like a
Y2K?
bit of a phenomenon almost like leading up to it of like what's gonna happen. Oh my god. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of mystery and like unrest about it because people thought like the whole world was just gonna like shut down.
Yes, and Julie mentioned she thought, like, all the planes were gonna fall out of the sky and that she wasn't gonna be allowed to or able to come in the real world. And my question for you is, do you remember where you were during Y2K by any chance? Or were you, like, still kind of too young? Because I remember exactly what I was doing on New Year's Eve of Y2K, of 1999 into 2000.
I know I was in 6th grade. I do not remember where I was or what I was doing. But we used to like go to this like this town in Connecticut used to put on like a little not a little, but a big event, like different places would have different things like balloon animals, fish paints, like snacks, all this. I don't know. It's like a big, like around the city thing. So there was a high chance that we were there, but I don't remember exactly. The only thing I remember about Y2K is like after it happening, like nothing went wrong except there was like one, like blockbuster video rental type of store that its computer like reset and everybody's like videos were deemed like overdue by hundreds of years and they
Oh
owed
my
like
god!
hundreds of money.
That would be
Other than that, like
horrible.
that was like the only thing I heard that like went wrong with Y2K, but I definitely don't remember where I was.
Shout out to Blockbuster. I remember I was in my bedroom at the time on AOL Instant Messenger. Might have been AOL. I think it was on AIM though at the time. Talking to a friend that I had met, get ready to be secondhand embarrassed for me, on an InSync message board back when I was like 13. I was 15 uh, at the time of Y2K. I don't know, or maybe that was the year I was turning 15. I might have been 14 at the time. But I remember saying to myself, like, it's been New Year's in Australia and nothing happened. So, like, nothing's going to happen. Like, it's
Mhm.
been New Year's already. Like, it's the year 2000 already in
Yeah.
Australia and they're fine. So I was like, this is probably nothing. And I was right. It was nothing. But that's what like my cynical brain. I mean, I guess it's not cynical, maybe it's more realistic. So long story short, I've always been this way. But that's where I was sitting in my room. I think I had Christmas lights up behind my desk. It was a vibe. It was a very early 2000s vibe. Um, yeah, brought me back. So, they open this old box of stuff and there's like a Discman in there. There's some old
Mhm.
clothes and board games. And then they start talking about like Matt's style. And Matt says that his style was 50-50. And to that, I want to say, sir, are you sure?
Well, how do you even describe your own style as 50-50? Like, what does that even mean? Like 50% good, 50% bad, like
That's what I
50%
took it to mean.
Hawaiian, 50% like skater boy? Like what are we dividing 50-50 here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think he meant it was like 50% good, 50% bad. And to that, I say, no, all of it was god awful. Like, it was awful.
I mean, the orange glasses though.
Yeah. Those should be in a museum somewhere,
They were on
like a fashion
Beverly
police museum.
Hills. Real Housewives of
Oh,
Beverly Hills
right.
last week.
That's right,
Rinna
that's
was
right.
wearing them.
That's true.
She
That
took
is
them
true.
out of the Y2K box
Yeah.
and wore
They should
them
have
to
put
see
the
Erica.
yeah, they should have put his glasses in that box. But he makes some kind of joke saying that he thinks God is withholding his love from him because of the sin of his Hawaiian shirts, and then I feel like he realized, like, what he was saying, and then was like, "Oh, I'm just kidding." Like, it seemed like he got, like, uncomfortable that he, like, made a joke about God, which I feel like is foreshadowing about the rest of the episode. Maybe I'm reading into it, but it felt like it made him a little uncomfortable, his own joke.
Yeah, how he's, like, asking forgiveness for something that is not important.
Right. Like, making a mockery of his religion.
Mhm.
Um So Melissa comes down and she puts her wig on, or a wig on from that mirrors the haircut that she got in 2000 when she was on the show. And she said she went to Lens Crafters and got glasses and she put a little scarf on and she came down. She looked almost exactly the same. Like, shout out to Melissa for not aging at all because she looked almost exactly the same.
100%. When she came walking down those stairs, I'm just like, "Holy shit, that's what year is it? I don't know.
I
I
know. And
genuinely don't know."
I love that she did that. And she even said it had like the little bang in the front.
Yeah.
Um, and she said, like, when she put her wig on, she said, I put it on and I was like, walk into the trauma. And I was like, I love that. She's so funny. But so they go outside and there's like candy and CDs everywhere and like CDs hanging from a thing and they have like a cute little party. Danny's wearing one of those like ringer t-shirts that he used to wear every single day of his life, I guess, back then.
Mhm.
Um, and then Back That Ass Up starts playing and we get a lot of really bad white people dancing.
I was just really happy for Melissa because back at the drag show that they went to, she
Yes,
was
she requested
upset
it. Yes.
that they didn't play it before she left, and
Mhm.
so she was getting her favorite song finally, and,
Yes.
I think she called it is I'm not doubting her word here, anthemic. Um, I'd never heard the word anthem being used in that way.
Yeah, you're right. I've never heard it used that way either.
But, like, she's a genius. She, like, went off about, like, grammar and how they had to have her stop reading the incoming messages because she kept, like, saying, "This is bad subject verb agreement," or, like, "This should be this," like, while she's reading it, and they're like, "Nah, Jamie, why don't you read this instead?" Like,
She's an icon.
so I trust, that anthemic is a word
Mhm.
because Melissa said it, but she's right. Like, when you hear that song, there you hear the beginning part of that,
Yes,
you
it's
know
like,
what's coming up.
"Oh, shit, okay,
Mhm,
now we're gonna dance." Which is what all of the white roommates did really poorly, I have to say. That was, like, the worst display of rhythm collectively that I think I've ever seen. Like, usually there's, like, at least some people that can dance fine, but, like, this whole group
mhm.
was a hot mess. Like, Julie looked like she was having a seizure. Matt was just, like, bouncing up and down. Jamie was just, like, jumping around, like, weirdly, like, jumping and, like, shaking his body. It was just, like, very uncomfortable to watch for me. I don't know if you agreed, but I was just like, "Oh god, this is just hideous."
Well, speaking of the group, was Kelly at the Y2k party?
Yes, she was, because she was,
Okay,
like, shaking her butt a little bit, like, bouncing her butt up and down with her and Matt, I think, were doing it.
okay.
I was like, this is a mess." I would be mortified if I was on TV dancing and looked like that.
I mean,
I think I dance better than this. I think I have, like, a 50% more rhythm at least than they do.
I
I would say
need
more, but I'm gonna be generous to everyone else and just say, like, maybe I'm thinking too highly of myself, so I'll scale it back and say 50%, but this was, like, bad.
if I have at least 3 drinks, then I'm confident that I'm dancing better than that, but otherwise, there's
Yeah.
probably far too much trepidation in the idea that I'm dancing in front of all these cameras for me to feel like I would be
Same.
dancing any better than them.
Same. I would do if I was not drinking, I would do what Melissa said in the drag club
The
episode where
shoulder
she said that she's doing, like, the old mom
the
shoulder
mom
shake or something.
shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were sober. Um, but yeah, it was just a mess. So then, Matt just, like, gets up and leaves and says he needs to take a nap and then needs to go play with his rosary,
Mhm.
and I was like, "This man is just sad."
I thought he
He's
was
just, like,
joking when he
sad.
said that. Did you think that was serious?
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him if he was here. I mean, everybody laughed, so it seemed like maybe he was joking, but, like, still, he just, like, makes me sad that people like that exist in this world. No shade. It's not a religious thing. It's like you're, like, almost like a fundamentalist.
Mhm.
Maybe that's too harsh. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, like okay, I'm gonna agree with something that Julie said, where she was like, "Yes, I had my religion and my religious beliefs or whatever, but, like, I never let it stop me from having an experience."
Yes. Yeah, I wrote that in
And
my notes later that I think this is, like, the one thing that I've ever agreed with Julie on.
yeah, I agree with you in that, like,
Mhm.
I think she's right. It's hard, like, I get managing your faith and, um, your beliefs and all of that, but at the same time, there's, like if you believe that you're gonna go to hell because you have your tarot cards read, like, that's just so you're putting up so many walls and so many obstacles to just, um, like, living in a somewhat normal life. I just feel bad that, like, that's how your frame of mind is, and especially he's, like, 40 something at this point and has not in 20 years been able to figure a way outside of it, and if anything, has, like, burrowed himself more into these
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yeah. Elon in the chat says that they're surprised he didn't become a priest after this, and I agree, actually.
Same.
I'm surprised. I don't know what his job is, but I am surprised that he didn't do something in, like, the religious sphere because it seems like
Mhm.
that's, like, his whole life is based around that. And we get a lot more of that in this episode, so we'll talk about it when we get there. But Jamie says, the tension is gone, and it feels like they're a family again after all these tense conversations that they've had. So they're just having a good time. So the next scene is that we get Jamie and Julie jump roping on like the sidewalk, and they're just like timing themselves, I guess, to jump rope for 3 minutes, which to me doesn't seem long, but I know realistically, if I were jump roping for like 30 seconds, it would be too long. So I give them credit for doing it for 3 minutes.
But Jamie
Because
was in jeans.
yeah, this whole thing was like weird. Like, okay, so she's like staring into his face. I don't know if you noticed how like it looked like she was just like staring a hole into his face while she was jump roping, and he was like
Mhm,
looking off to the side. I don't know if this is like weird camera work or something and they were just normal, but it looked like she was like staring at him, like
mhm.
staring him down, and that he was just like looking off into the sphere universe. And then she just starts talking about how, well, in her confessional she says there's inexplicable chemistry between them, and that she has her biggest regret is that she hasn't seen him in all of these years, but he's still a big part of her life. And then she says that she has her family, her friends, her husband, and then she said, and then there's Jamie. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what?
Yeah, it's a very weird pedestal to put someone on
What?
that you had no interaction with for 20 years, but, and I think we will probably get into this in a little bit. There's there's a connection there that, um, almost feels like it was created in, like, a young author or, like, a young adult's fiction novel.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's like she's playing into this whatever happened with them back in the day, um, it seems like that is a real focal point of Julie's experience with Jamie now. It's almost like too nostalgic in a weird way.
Yeah.
And she even said, like, people can have a deep connection and a sexual relationship, but not be in love to him. And he was like, yeah,
Yes.
that's a good confessional thought or something like that. AKA, like, don't
Yeah.
fucking say this to my face, Julie. I'm married with twins.
Yes, yeah, she says that to him seemingly out of nowhere. Like, obviously, we don't know what the conversation was leading up to
Mhm,
it, but it seemed like she just spouts this out of nowhere. And as she's jump roping, and he's just like, "Yeah, yeah, great confessional thought." And like, he seems so awkward. And I just want to say, like, are you not in your 40s? Like, you don't realize that there are tons of people in this universe that can have like a connection, a sexual relationship who aren't in love with each other? That's probably like, I mean, just saying numbers that I don't know off the top, like off if they're true, but at least most of majority of people who have ever had a sexual relationship probably had sex with people they had a deep connection with and were not in love with them at the time.
mhm.
Like it's that's just a normal thing.
Yeah, but Julie's view of normal is a whole other reality.
It's just like she's just so stunted to me
Mm,
in so many ways, and this is like a perfect example of like this felt like 20-year-old Julie that we were watching on The Real World in the year 2000. Like,
mhm.
felt like something she would say, but
It
she's 40
Yeah.
something.
At
It's
least she's
just
been, like,
bizarre.
consistent throughout this whole thing where
I
she's
guess.
at this same like, she didn't come in on this, like, high horse of maturity. She's been 21-year-old Julie, the non-Mormon, since she came into the homecoming experience.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. It's wild to me how one person can show almost not even no growth, just like a stunted reality and like almost like a backwards movement
Mhm,
in this much time. But so then we go back to the house and we get an incoming message. And this incoming message is all about how all the girls thought in the house and Danny thought Jamie was just like a hot babe back in
mhm.
the year 2000.
Hot
And we
babe.
get all these different confessionals about what a hot babe Jamie was. Um, First, we get Kelly, we get Melissa, we get Danny. We just get all these flashbacks and like the flirting between them. And we get Julie. Um, Anything about this flashback? I guess I mean, it was a focal point of the original season, but didn't feel like people were obsessed with him.
It I know when I watched it, what, last month or whatever, I did notice that was, like, each one of them went through their phase of
Mm,
thinking that if I end up, like, marrying Jamie, my life will be the best life ever. Um,
yeah.
The thing that got me with this video was Jamie's response to seeing him and Julie kissing. He just went, "Oh God."
Yeah, Jamie's response this whole time is like over the top, awkward, and uncomfortable. Like it's like he wants to crawl out of his skin.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a whole mess. But we
Yes.
get like a clip of him before we start talking about his reactions. We get a clip of him saying like he was on his own mission, he had blinders on, he wasn't kicked back and relaxed and didn't want to engage in relationships at the time, which like we get some of this throughout the episode, so we may as well just talk about like where Jamie is in his life now rather than kind of
Yeah.
like jump around. So he apparently met his wife on Tinder, and then he goes, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said that." And I'm like, "What?" I mean, good for you for being a Tinder success story, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like he is right at the age where if you were meeting your significant other on an online dating app, that you like made up a story about it because it still was like a little
yeah, a little
taboo.
taboo.
Where now it's just like, yeah, I met mine on Hinge. You met yours on Bumble. You on Tinder?
Right.
Wow. Like it's just like that's everyone's story. There's no like
Mhm.
romantic, like he held the door open for me. We locked eyes, and from there on out, we were just in love for the whole like no, it's we
Yeah,
both swiped right on each other. Which one
exactly.
did you swipe right on? And I think like he's at the age where it was still like a little weird to be admitting that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they just like wanted to fuck and then it ended up working out. Then they got
Mhm.
married. They got married when he was 37, which is not old, but it's not surprising that he waited until his late 30s to get married based on
Yeah.
kind of just like the vibe that we got of him on the show and even his vibe now, it just feels like he was a little late to mature, and he kind of admits that. He said, you know, he went on the challenge a couple of times. He wanted to capitalize on the .com boom, and instead he ended up being a truck driver, which is a pivot. But he
Yeah.
said, you know, he traveled across the world and had a good time and whatever. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't know
Me
if we
neither.
know. But I thought it was interesting. His house or apartment, I guess, in Chicago looks very nice.
Yes, it does. I I'm wondering if it's Chicago proper. I would like to think it is based off of the style of the house, but like I would not be surprised if he was in like one of the suburbs and they just used like Chicago footage. So,
Yeah.
because I know he's originally from the suburbs, even though they said like he was from Chicago. I know he said like, oh, I'm from a suburb, like a north or whatever.
Yeah. Valencia in the chat says she almost married someone she met back in 1999 who met through AOL, which is amazing. That's an amazing. That would be a really good story.
Okay, but Valencia, what would you have told people? Like, what
Yeah,
was
would
your
you admit
meeting
it? Would you have
story?
admitted it? That's the question. Um, yeah. So then, I mean, what else about Jamie? That's kind of where he's at right now. He thinks his wife is a great person, and he has 2 kids. They're twins.
Hmm.
That's kind of it. It's like, yeah, we get this package of him throughout the show, like it's sprinkled in throughout. And it's kind of just like, okay, yeah, he's just a dude
Yeah.
living a life. I mean, there's nothing fantastic about it. And I mean fantastic in the sense of like there's nothing like over the top.
Yeah. Just kind of normal in terms of like, oh, here's a 40 something year old white dude with kids. Like,
Yeah,
a little bit
exactly.
longer hair. That's all.
Right. Exactly. So back to the incoming message, we get this package of everybody, and Melissa kind of says, well, Matt asks if it's awkward to watch 22 years later, and Jamie says yes, and that he was attracted to all of the women in the house back then. Um, and he was like, you know, and Melissa basically was like, this was all for fun. This was part of her storyline. Everyone was supposed to have a crush on Jamie, and that
Hmm.
they played into it. And she's like, you know, nothing ever happened, but that's okay. We left with a really great friendship. Um, Kelly says she met Peter and then her energy shifted in the house and she was like out of the Jamie thing and was fully into Peter. And then she moved in with him after the show, which I'm excited that we get to find out what actually happened with Peter because I felt like that was a pretty big part of the show back then.
Yeah.
Um, they got an apartment together, but their future plans ended up different and they broke up soon after and she moved to New York. So that's that on that.
I wonder if she regrets like missing out on so much of the in-house experience because she decided to basically like spend 3 of the 5 months living with Peter. Like I'm sure it'd be great to have a refuge to go and be able to stay at someone else's place or anywhere um even once or twice a week. But I wonder if she looks back on it as like shit, I gave up this really unique experience. for a guy that I ended up breaking up with like a couple months after. I just
Yeah,
wonder.
and I wonder too, and even I think on one of the last couple of episodes, I don't know if it was the actual last episode or one before, but Melissa was saying, I think it was Peter was away for the weekend or something like that, and Melissa was
Mhm.
like, you and I are just going to be acquaintances. Like we couldn't get close because you were closed off and you weren't here.
Mhm.
And I have to wonder if, I mean, they seem close enough now. I think they've remained close after this filming, but feels almost like a wasted opportunity to get the most out of this experience if you're like you said. I think it's probably great to have kind of like a refuge and go and be able to separate from it a little bit, but it's almost like you're wasting this opportunity that so many other people would kind of kill for at that,
Yeah.
especially at that time.
And we talked about it when we did our season recap. Um, that to me, it's surprising that MTV even allowed that,
Yeah.
where they didn't say like, no, you must sleep in the house like 5 nights a week or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess like when you're trying to frame it as the real world, and like they let Danny and Tokyo go and get other jobs, whatever. Like it is
Mhm.
realistic to like shack up with someone or whatever, but at the same time, like you are making a TV show, and it also
Right.
comes down to Kelly wanting to have that experience, and by removing herself from it, uh, I don't know. It also like kind of tracks what she's doing now. How many things has she not gone to?
Right. I know, and, like, no shade to Kelly, but it's not like we missed out. If it was Tokyo, even Tokyo kind of, like, separated himself for a while, was doing a lot of things out of the house, but
Mhm.
if it was Melissa, and I hate to say this, but even Julie back then, who contributed a lot to the show, I think it would've been a little different. It doesn't feel like we missed anything with not having Kelly
Yeah.
on, because 'cause we're seeing Kelly now, and it's more of the same.
Yeah.
So, Kelly asks if Julie and Jamie had feelings for each other, and Jamie, without missing a beat, says no. Like a hard no. Like not even not even like no. It was just like no. Um and Julie says that she can't say that it was nothing, but doesn't really know what it was. And she says, well, we were on these challenges together, and Kelly flat out goes like, was there a hookup? And I think Danny was like, I think you're assuming that we know more than we do.
Mhm.
So Jamie's kind of like, fine, like let the cat out of the bag. So Julie admits that when they went on a challenge, they went on the extreme challenge. They had a night in a hotel room and they hooked up. I don't think this was a one-time hookup
Mhm.
situation. This isn't the one they talk about, but I think it was probably more than once. But she says that this like opened a door to a different part of her life that she wasn't tapped into yet. And it feels like, well, I'll move ahead and say that there was a time where they sat outside right after this, and she told Jamie that he gave her her first orgasm, and, like, it feels like she is holding on to this for her whole life, maybe, like, it's just very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the young adult,
yeah.
fictional novel that I was referencing before, like, how she really embodies this idea of, um, like, you're supposed to just have this, like, lasting connection to your first, and I'm gonna bring on this question 'cause I was also
Yes.
gonna ask it.
Same.
Was an actual hookup like okay, did Julie and Jamie have sex, or did it not get too full on sex? I don't know if we know.
I don't know if we know either. I know we know through other means that there was a finger situation that happened, but I don't think it was this time. I think this is on a
Mhm.
bus, also on the challenge, which is why I'm saying I think it was more than once. Um, but the way that they made it seemed like maybe Julie lost her virginity to Jamie in a hotel room. That's kind of like
Right,
what I was taking from it, but it is a big assumption because they didn't say that. But the way she was talking about it makes it seem like that's what happened. If
and
she's holding on to just like a finger getting stuck up there and you're still thinking about it 22 years later, then I feel really fucking bad for you, Julie, is all I'm gonna say.
she did say, like sorry, I'm, like, choking on my laughter from that, but, she did say that Jamie made her, like, realize how to be sexually compatible, or, like, that
Yeah.
like, how to determine if she was sexually compatible with her husband. So, to me,
Yes.
it makes it seem like they had sex.
That it makes it seem that way to me too. But she basically yeah, okay, so she says that this opened doors to a different part of her life that she wasn't tapped into. She says a lot about, like, body autonomy again because, like, this is her favorite phrase, I guess. I feel like she said it
Mhm.
every episode. Must have just, like, learned it before she came into the house. But Jamie basically is like, "I didn't remember us hooking up on the challenge." Which is, like, crazy to me because I mean, it's not crazy, I just think it's kind of funny because Julie obviously has been thinking about this for 22 years,
Mhm.
and Jamie's like, "I don't even remember that we hooked up on that challenge."
Yeah.
Um, which oof, big oof for you, Julie.
Yeah,
Um,
another comment in their, like, differences was Julie being like, "I hooked up with Jamie and it was really good," and then she was like, "But I was just, like, looking for a fuck buddy," and Jamie goes, "Let the record show there was no F buddy."
yes,
So, like, what happened? What happened? I don't know what happened.
that's a good call out actually, so maybe they didn't have sex?
I mean,
But
he could be
she says
denying
fuck buddy,
it.
so I'm like, did they have sex once and then she wanted to have more sex and he said no? Like, was it a one time? Like, I'm just confused. I want the record to be set straight. I would like
He
to know.
he's
Julie, speak on it,
also
please.
40 something with kids on national television and probably doesn't want with a wife, like, probably not wanting to just straight up admit that I had sex with this woman and is, like, okay, kind of beating around the bush, like, pun intended there, but, um, so, uh,
That's
I
what he did on the bus.
yeah. So, I am in the camp of, like, 80% confident that they had sex, but there's 20% of me that could be convinced that, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe he, like, did something a different way for her.
Maybe they just dry humped.
Maybe. I'm not gonna sit here and come up with all the different ways that he could have made her
Yeah,
orgasm
I guess we
because
don't need to
I did
like
just eat dinner before this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I didn't and I'm a little hungry, so this will help me kind of like save my
curb
appetite
your
for later.
appetite a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, so yeah, throughout this whole thing, Jamie just seems very awkward, and we get like kind of a talking head of Kelly being like, "I hope that they had a conversation about like talking about this, and that every all parties are comfortable because like we should be respecting everyone's privacy. They're both married with children." Which to that I say like, yes, I agree, and you probably don't want to be talking about this on TV, and your wife and probably your husband are not super comfortable. Like, with you airing this out and then staying in the house with
Mhm.
them, with this being a topic. But at the same time, like, everybody has a past and
Right.
you can't get mad at someone for their past. So, I mean, whatever. But,
But you can
um,
get uncomfortable with people talking about their past
yes, which
if
we saw.
Matt
Well, yes. So I have written down when they're talking about the fuck buddy, I said at this time, Matt literally looks like he's dying inside and he's covering his face. He's looking up at the sky and he's just like grimacing. And I'm to this, I say, like, there's something wrong with Matt.
Mhm.
Like, are you okay, sir? That you can't even be in a room. You have 6 kids. We learned that he has 7 children. His wife, unfortunately, had a miscarriage. Um, and so 6 kids on this earth is what he says
Mhm.
later in this episode. Like, you've had sex before,
At least 6 times. At least 7
at
times.
least 7 times. So it's like, okay, let's relax. Like, you don't need to like look like you need to crawl out of your skin the second that the word sex comes up. Like, there's something wrong here. Just because you're religious doesn't mean you can't be in a room where people are talking about sex.
Mhm. Especially because, like, that was the least graphic conversation you could have had involving sex.
To say like fuck buddy and then be like and like have to hold on like you're on
Clutching
a
my
plane that's
pearls, yeah.
yeah, like I feel like he would look like me when I'm on a plane and it gets turbulent and I'm like, oh fuck. Like that's what it's but I'm like, why? What's going on here? It's just
Mhm.
weird. So yeah, Julie says that she has like a talking head and she talks about how she wants women to feel empowered in their sexuality, which I was like, okay, Julie, that's good. Like I'm glad that we're getting at least like one part of you that isn't completely awful, but like I'm not going to give her that much credit because
Mhm.
no. Um so she says yes to what you said earlier, Carrie, that she credits Jamie for showing her what sexual compatibility is, and without him, she may not know that she was sexually compatible with her husband. And this feels like such like a weird like connection to Jamie. Like she's putting so much of this on Jamie when Jamie's like, I don't even remember this. And it's like weird that she almost like credits Jamie for her being able to have sex with her husband. Like it's like you're putting so much stock into like this one or few hookups with this one dude 20 years ago. It's fucking weird. That's weird.
Okay, I have to tell you why I, like, couldn't say anything for a second because I'm
Okay.
debating, do I say this out loud? And this is what this
Yeah.
reminds me of.
Okay.
My best friend, male. We
Okay.
won't
Does he
use
listen
his
to this?
real oh, God, no. I'm not
Okay,
gonna
good.
say his name, but,
Okay.
he hooked up with this woman who I know, and, I also knew that she was having a hard time landing any, right?
Okay.
Like,
Mhm, 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 mhm.
so after they hook up, right? And we mean full on hookup. I'm not Julie hooking
Yeah.
up, like, we mean full on. She she says as she's getting ready to, like, putting her
Oh,
clothes on and
no.
leaving, she goes, "Thank you for penetrating me." And, like, that's what I imagine like, that was basically, like, Julie.
How polite. That's very nice of her. Thank you for your time and your penetration.
I I still, like, laugh so hard thinking of when I was told this story, but, that's kind of, like, the vibes that I got from this was, like,
Yeah.
"Jamie, I just, like, thank you 22 years ago for penetrating me because it has led me to lead the life that I live now. Like, your dick is magic."
Yes, like, what kind of credit are you giving this man? And I'm like, Was it really that good? I really doubt it. It was probably mediocre at best, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Right.
This guy, really? I just, like, I don't know. I just don't Valencia says she's speechless. I was also speechless. I still feel like I am speechless. I was watching this and I was like, "What?" Again, every week, Julie makes me, like, cringe to the fact where I, like, have to put my hands on my face and just go, like, I'm just if you're not watching, my hands are to my face and I'm scrunching my face, like, this is how I sit and I watch every episode, and at least this week it was, like, for a different reason and not, like,
Yeah.
just blatant racism, but this
Mhm.
time I'm just like, "Are you ma'am, ma'am." I just mess. So Danny says to Julie, you say that you were craving a fuck buddy, but what you're really craving was pure human intimacy and not just a fuck buddy. And you should give yourself more credit than that. You were in a toxic situation with your religion and they made you think that that wasn't okay. So, give yourself more credit. And she's like, I agree. And I was like, okay. I don't know. It just seemed weird to be like,
Mhm.
wow, yeah, thanks for saying that. She was just like, I agree. I don't know. I thought it was a weird response.
And then Danny goes, "And this was just a boner for Jamie."
Yeah, Jamie just had a boner, which I'm like, oof. Again, another oof on the oofometer. Rough. So then they go outside, and that's where Julie drops the bomb. At least it was a bomb to me. I don't know if it was a
Yes.
bomb to Jamie. It seemed like a bomb was dropped on Jamie as well. That he was her first orgasm, and then she started masturbating, which I take to mean that she thought of Jamie every time she masturbated. I don't know. I think she probably still does think of Jamie every time she masturbates. It kind of seems like it. She
That
made it
did
seem that
not
way.
cross, like, my mind until right now you
This
saying
is
it.
this is what she's making it. She's how can she make us think anything else with the way
Mhm.
that she's talking about this man and reminiscing about
Mhm.
him beating around the bush? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just yeah. And he just like goes like, oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, yeah. And she's like, I know this is TMI and like probably awkward. And he goes, no, but with
Yeah,
like
in the
such a
highest
highest
octave
voice.
possible.
So
I
you could
wrote
tell
that
he's
down.
yes, me too. I was like, you can tell he's so uncomfortable because his voice was so high that I was like, oh my God, this is
That's
the worst.
literally the worst lie I've heard in a very long time.
No. And I was like, oh no. Oh no. This is so I'm cringing just thinking about back to it. It was rough. And she goes, and she says that it's awkward. Like, this is probably awkward. Like, it's awkward. It's probably awkward for you. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, she's still
Jamie
talking.
want
Jamie's still
others.
talking.
Yeah, he want others
This
so
whole
bad. So
episode,
bad.
Jamie just wants to run out the door. It's
He's
just
like, "You guys
very
could you
obvious.
didn't have to focus an episode on me, guys. I was fine being the woo guy in the background. Like, why y'all gotta
Exactly.
go and give me my time? I don't need camera time. Keep me
It's
out of
like,
here."
yeah, yeah. But then we do get a confessional of Jamie saying, like, he doesn't want her to think it was like a flippant thing, didn't mean anything because obviously, like, for her, it meant a lot. A lot. Still does mean a lot. And he was happy that it wasn't complicated by a relationship at that time. Anything else to talk about with Julie's sexual obsession with Jamie from 22 years ago?
Thankfully, no.
Yeah. I think we've said enough. I think she said more than enough. Like,
Mhm.
way too much.
Mhm.
What a mess. All right, so now we do kind of like a hard pivot. And Melissa's FaceTiming with Matt's wife and looking through her fridge on FaceTime, which I think is hilarious. And it seems like
Yes.
this is the first time they've ever spoken to each other, which is even more hilarious to me
Mhm.
because it seemed very much like I'm just meeting her for the first time and I'm like, let me see your food situation in your fridge.
Yeah.
So she's like, are those all your eggs and your butter? And she's asking how many times they go to the supermarket. And Matt says 2 to 3 times a week, which is wild. Um, and we get like our first like Matt segment. She also says, "Go back to the eggs. I want to count the cartons," which I thought was very funny. And I never really thought about like how much money parents of a lot of children probably spend on food, and it's probably a lot.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think of how much it costs to feed myself,
Right.
that, like, if you have to feed 5 people, like, I'm just thinking of, like, my family was myself, my 2 brothers, my mom, my dad, so, like, you're making dinner for 5 every night, like, you have to be very strategic with what you're doing.
Mhm. Yes, and also, like, to cook that large of portions feels like to feed 8 people total in his
Yeah.
family is like, wow, how do you cook for 8 people every single night? That's a lot. We get our first Matt segment. So he basically was like, "I never really thought I was a father, but now it's, like, defined me," which I'm kind of like, "Well, how did you not think you were a father when the only time that you will ever have sex is to produce a child?" Because that's
Yeah.
what you make it seem like, so obviously you're gonna have a kid. Um, he says that his wife had a miscarriage a few years ago and lost their son, which is very sad. So they have 7 children, he said 6 on Earth.
Is this an inappropriate time to ask, do we think that he thinks his wife should be punished by the law, for having a miscarriage, like some laws are trying to do in this country? Because, um,
I don't
this
think it's an appropriate time, and I think, yeah, he probably does. Probably
which
not his wife, but probably other women he
like,
probably feels bad
yeah,
about.
not mine, because like, it was a
Yeah,
genuine miscarriage. She wasn't lying about it and
right.
to cover up something else. But when I honestly, like, I'm very caught up in the Roe v. Wade stuff, so that was my initial
Yeah.
thought, was like, I even wrote it down. But anyway, proceed.
Well, my initial thought was, and I almost just said it, but I didn't want to cross the boundary, even though I'm talking about like Julie getting fingered. Didn't want to cross the boundary of Matt saying like he feels like the type of quote unquote Christian, because I feel like these people that feel this way aren't even, they're just evil. Um, are the types of people who feel like birth control should be outlawed,
Yeah.
like what people are talking about in Louisiana.
Mhm.
He feels like that to me. So that's why I'm like, why wouldn't you be a father? Because you probably don't believe in birth control. You probably believe that's a sin too. You fucking nutcase. Anyway, so he basically says like back in the house, it was hard to keep up his morals and convictions. And then they show him like praying for everybody in the house, and he doesn't remember
Yeah.
everybody's name. And I'm like, what a mess. So that's, I mean, we randomly get that, and then we go back. Melissa gives him back the phone, and then he like hangs up on his wife. And Melissa's like, "You
Mhm.
didn't even say it, like you just hung up on her," which was kind of funny. Um, and then we go just get like a random scene of Jamie and Julie in a hot tub, which feels like foreshadowing more than anything
Mhm.
for what's to come in the season. And we get a confessional of Julie saying like, "I'm in love with my husband. Like we are 100%. But it's still nice that Jamie's here because we have so much fun together." And I'm like, why should those two things be connected?
Right.
Why would you say I'm in love with my husband, but it's nice that Jamie's here? Like those two things should not be related if you're not still obsessed.
Mhm.
Then we just get like a weird segment of Jamie talking about like looking out of shape, but like he can still run 20 miles. And I'm like, no, you can't. You're not running an almost marathon. Like that's not happening. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Well, okay, so did you see though his wedding picture? He definitely has lost weight since his wedding,
Yes.
like a significant
Yes.
amount. So
But he's
I'm
not
not saying
running
he
20
can't.
miles.
I think you can, okay, this might be a hot take. I think a lot of people could run that much once, but, like, the ramifications of it on your body
Mhm.
afterwards is really the difference in it. Like, how long it's gonna take you and how much it, like, destroys your body, but I do think that there is a large group of the population of, like, people in the world who, if you say, like, "Run 20 miles or else, like, something very traumatic happens to you," I think a lot of people could do it the one time.
I feel like I don't know. I don't know. That's so many miles to run. Like, I
It
wouldn't be able
is,
to
but
do
if
it.
you, like, had to do it once, just once,
No, I would not be able to do it. I know that there's no way that I would ever,
I
even
think
with,
you
like,
could if you
training for the rest of my
had
life,
to.
I don't
No
think I could.
training, just go into it, like, the one time, had to do it. I think you could do it once. Do I think that you'll be the same person again after? Absolutely not.
No, I'm weighing, like, is that more of a traumatic experience to me versus, like, whatever the other option is of trauma? I
Or
don't
you're
know.
oh my
As I
gosh,
sit here and I drink
Nitro.
my poison soda, I mean, there's no way I'm not running. I'm not running a marathon. Um But Julie's like, "You, like, don't have that much work to do. Like, you still look really good." And that's the whole conversation.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And only incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think we'll see more here. It seems like next week is the episode where it, like, really goes over the top with not
Mhm.
over the top. I don't know what happens, but
Right.
seems like things get a little more messy, between the two of them. And then, we get another Jamie family segment, which we already talked about. And we get a clip of Matt and Jamie talking in the kitchen. And Matt says that he hasn't been away from his family for more than a day and a half. And I'm just like, dude, what? I mean, maybe that's normal. I don't know. Seems like not. But he also mentions how old his kids are.
Mhm.
So he says, like, I didn't write down all of their ages, but he says, like, 13 and then 9 and then 7 and then, like, 5. And I'm just like, so you've basically, like, your wife has been consistently pregnant for, like, 13 years,
Yeah,
basically.
that sucks.
That sucks.
Yes. There's people who love being pregnant though, and they're weird. They're not me.
I wonder if she's one of them or if, like, Matt just, like I said, doesn't believe in birth control.
I mean,
Maybe
she
she doesn't
can't.
believe in birth
I was
control.
gonna say, like, that's probably a takes two to tango.
Yeah. Yikes. And then we get, like, a weird little tiny clip of Danny, and I wrote this down just for a specific reason of, like, Danny and Kelly are sitting outside in the sun, and they're like, "The sun feels so good right now." But they're, like, in hats,
Mhm.
in sunglasses, and in hoodies, like, almost fully covered, and I'm like, "Do
Mhm.
you even feel the sun?" Like, you have so much on. It's just
Mhm.
very int I was like, "This is funny to me." They just look like they're bundled up, and they're like, "Sun feels so good." Just thought it was funny. Uh, and then we get some tarot card reading. So
Mhm.
Melissa arranges a tarot card reader to come to the house and read the roommates' cards, and we get, like, um a flashback of back in the day when Julie and was it her brother? Was that her brother or, like, the guy that she was kinda seeing at the time that she made out with?
That was the guy that
That was
she
the guy.
was yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, "That's the devil." And she's like, "Who cares? Like, I love the devil." I mean, that's not really what she said, but yeah, she's like, "Let's do it." And then we get some, like, flashbacks of Kelly reading cards. So, I guess there's some ties back to the original season. So Melissa arranges tarot card readers to come to the house, and Matt is just like, "Nope, not for me. I'm getting the fuck out of here." Except Matt would never say fuck, so he says, "I'm getting the gosh golly darn heck out of here." And
I'm out.
leaves. Yeah,
It
I'm out.
darn tootin'.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so this is when we get Julie saying, like, Matt and I are very different in this way. Like, we were
Mhm.
both very tied to religion. This is what you were talking about earlier. But she's open to having experiences. And
Yeah.
that is the only thing that Julie, I feel like, will ever say where I'm like, I appreciate that from you. Like, you're not
Mhm.
closed-minded in the sense that you don't want to experience life. Where I feel like Matt is walking through life in such, like, and this is gonna sound judgmental, and I guess I, like, partially mean it to be specifically to Matt, not to, like, anybody who's religious, but it feels like he's walking through life, like, in fear of God.
Mhm.
And it's like, what you are not if you're on your deathbed, I don't know, it just feels like you're wasting so many potential experiences and so many things that you can enjoy in your life by not taking part. And I'm not saying tarot cards is, like, amazing, but there's so many things that he's just, like, so closed off to. And it's kinda,
Right.
like, sad.
And it's interesting to me because of the explanation he gives Melissa later in terms of, like, the reasoning behind why he won't partake in fortune tellers or tarot cards, and, um, it kind of just shows, like, what you're saying, the fear that he has of God, or just, like,
Yeah.
how much he is willing to align to whoever taught him these beliefs because, um I mean, I am not versed in the Bible at all, and I if
No, neither am
someone
I.
knows, like, where it says, like, "Thou shalt not partake in,"
Tarot
um
cards.
well, yeah, like, activities that may or may not predict your future, like, has he never played with a Ouija board?
Oh, I
Potentially.
very highly doubt he
Yeah,
has.
like, it's that
Yeah,
type of
I very
stuff,
highly doubt
so,
it.
um, it's his beliefs are strong. He is very, very set in his ways, and it is very interesting to see because I don't know. I mean, given like that's not the type of person I would surround myself with anyway. That kind of crazy to me.
Yes, it's very crazy to me. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we continue on with Matt at this point a little bit, and he like we see him in his room, and it almost feels like he's like locked in his room. Like I think even Danny's like, "Will you watch?" And he's just like, "I'm gonna go get some rest." And then he says,
Mhm.
"God bless you" to the tarot card reader, which
Mhm.
felt patronizing to me.
Mhm.
But then it feels like he's just like pacing around his room and feels like he locked himself in there. It
Mhm.
was weird. Then we get a conversation between him and Melissa, and he says, kind of like what you were saying, like, in my faith, we don't mess around with tarot cards or fortune telling. And that seems to be a way to predict the future. And that conflicts with like God's plan. And I'm like, this is like a sad thing that you feel like this being is controlling your every outcome in life and that you have no agency to make a decision for yourself or like
Mhm.
do something that you actually want to do because you're just so scared. It's just sad.
Right.
But he basically says like he's been overwhelmed the entire time he's there, and he's like, this I just like live my normal life, and like this is my normal life right now, and this doesn't feel normal anymore. And
Mhm.
then we kind of cut to like I have the Paramount Plus with no commercials. I don't know. I don't know if you have ads or not, but
I do have
this
ads.
okay. So this was like it seemed like this was an ad break, and I was like, please tell me this man is leaving. Like, please tell me he's gone because like we don't
Mhm.
need you here. That's what it seemed like he
Mhm.
was gearing up to say, but no. He said, I want to spend time with the people that I want to spend time with, but it gets hard when the situations are kind of like set up to make him feel uncomfortable. Like the situations that are being set up are all situations where it makes him feel uncomfortable, which I'm like, you're an adult. It's New Orleans. I don't really know what to tell you. Like, you really have to open your mind a little bit and like stop being so rigid and like weird about this because just being present around other people talking about sex isn't going to make you go to hell.
Mhm. Or like take makes you uncomfortable, then take the situation into your own hands and plan an event. Like Melissa's planned
Yes.
the tarot cards. She had her parents show up. Like she's doing things that are going to bring her happiness in this 2-week experience of something that like had potential to be very stressful, although it does seem like things have kind of calmed over
Yeah,
where her tensions came from. But like you're a grown ass man, then plan something
exactly.
that you'll enjoy.
Exactly. So Melissa says to him, like, she doesn't understand or rock with like the morality clauses in his
Mhm.
faith, but she does admire his commitment and his conviction. And she's like, you are who you are and you say what you mean. And then he says he's gonna do a group rosary as his activity. And she goes, wait, like really? Like she didn't even fake it. She was like,
Yeah,
what? And then
because
she's like, I'm Jewish. And he's like, no, I'm just kidding, which I just thought was funny that she didn't even pretend like she was gonna go along with it.
I mean, that's, like, his attempt at a joke, and, I mean, jokes are supposed to be funny, and
Mm,
that one wasn't.
hmm. No.
However, it does at least show that, like at least to me, it shows he has a little bit of perspective on, like, I can bring some humor into it despite the fact that, like, it's his humor and maybe not humor for everyone, um, but it doesn't mean he is, like, opening himself up to anything, and
Yeah.
I mean, I it like you said, we're really not missing out on much, like, if
No, we're
he
not.
isn't around, um, I think we're going to see an intense conversation because he is around
Mhm.
that probably wouldn't have happened without him being there, but otherwise, like, Matt is not the person or people I'm tuning back in for.
No, hard no on that. Um, anyway, so next we get to the tarot card readings. And I think what's her name? Ellie. She sits down,
Mhm,
she puts 3 cards down per person, which I thought was interesting that she was doing it like in front of everybody.
mhm,
I've had a tarot card reading, a serious one once. I've had like a couple of like rando ones, but and it was like by design very private. Like
mhm,
the person who read my cards was like, we'll take you in the back. It's gonna be like very private. Um, So that was interesting that it was like public and that it wasn't like more intimate, which I don't think is a bad thing. But she puts down 3 cards for each of them. And Jamie, I didn't write down the cards, but I wrote down what she said. She says that he's a multifaceted man, an earth lover, and a natural mother, and that you don't usually see that in men, but she loves to see it when you do see it. And she basically says like he just wants to make sure everybody's taken care of, and that the best kind of new man isn't sacrificing their role but co-chairing with women. And to that I say, yes.
Mhm.
Yes. We can be equal. I mean, women are a little better than men, no shade, but you know what I mean. Julie gets, well, she says to Julie that Jamie had the queen of coins and Julie had the king of coins, and that shows that
Mhm.
they have a natural affinity towards each other. And she's like, she's fucking like goofy about it.
Mhm.
And Danny says he isn't surprised and he feels like there's like a sexual undercurrent going on and that she used to be infatuated with him. This is like in a confessional, but Ellie says that she may not have found all of the things that she needs yet in life. And I'm just like, this feels like a mess. That feels like something Julie is going to hang on to. If I know Julie, like I think I know Julie, she's going to be like, well, Ellie told me that I still haven't found all the things in my life that are going to make me happy. So she's going to use it as like some kind of excuse to be trash.
Yeah, I mean, very likely, except she said
Yeah.
she doesn't believe in this stuff, so there's that
That's
one
true. That's
lingering
true.
piece of hope that this is just for fun for her and not so serious. But I could also see her using, like, the card that showed that her and Jamie have this
Now she
connection.
believes.
Yeah, like, she's gonna have to pick a lane on this one.
Mhm. Mhm. So she moves to Melissa and she says, time for you to get into politics. And she says, every day I want you to get up and say, what is my job as leader? And then we get a great confessional from Melissa saying, like, girl, I just want to go home and lay down. Like, I don't want a job. Like, and she's like, get out,
Yeah.
Ellie. I never should have hired you.
Don't come
But
here and give me work.
yes, exactly.
But if Melissa's running for any sort of office,
I'll volunteer for her
I
campaign.
will buy a residency in wherever
Yeah.
she is so I can vote for her.
Let me knock on doors for this woman. I will go
Mhm.
door to door. Um, we get Kelly. Just basically, she's like, "You're a lover and you're good in bed," and Kelly's like, "I am," and I'm like, "Are you though?" Doesn't scream it to me, but who knows? And then we just like get clips of her and Scott Wolf of Party of Five fame, eating ice cream and stuff, and I'm like, okay, if that's all we get from Kelly in terms of like her life now, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, our preview showed that there's a little bit more that they're gonna at least try to get out of her. I don't know if they'll
That's
be
true.
successful in it.
That's true. That's true. Um, from there, we moved to Tokyo, and I thought this was such a great card. And also, this episode is just like so low on Tokyo that I'm upset about it.
Yes, I thought about
We
that
didn't get a
too.
song this week, and that's my favorite part of every episode, so I'm upset
Mhm.
about it. Um, but she says his card means that all aspects of a person are together in unity, and he's probably done a lot on his own and wants him to think about partnerships and other people in the next trip around the mountain. And I was like, Tokyo, let people in,
Mhm.
Tokyo. You don't have to do it all on your own. We love you. We all love you. Seems like he's getting there, though.
Yeah, definitely more so than what we saw 2 decades
Yeah.
ago.
Yes. And then we get Danny saying that there's some secrets and some things in his unconscious and wants him to become a teacher and a leader. And he says to her that he avoids this and wants to figure out like what about him makes him always want to avoid taking this role. And she says, it's natural. We move away from things that are scary for us. And she tells him to step into it and get a bigger sword. And then, we get a confessional of Danny again, kind of telling us that he wasn't ready to be a voice for the LGBT community. But now he gets a second chance and he really wants to help kind of like push this narrative forward. So
Mhm.
that's great. I'm excited for Danny to do more if that's what he wants to do when he gets out of the house and kind of open up again. I know he's kind of been up in Vermont doing his own thing, but I know him, Melissa, and Kelly have been doing like these weekly chats on some kind of platform. And I don't know if they're like talking about like things, like big things or just the show, but it seems like he's a little more open to being out there now, which
Mhm.
is nice.
And it also is foreshadowing for just the leadership role he's about to take later in this episode in terms
Yeah.
of um, teaching people about something so important to him.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else in terms of the tarot cards that any thoughts?
No, it
Anything we
just
didn't touch on?
seems like we're following the same kind of pattern of like fun event, serious event, fun event, serious event. And so at this point, I was like, okay, what bullshit's about to go down now? Because like we just had
Mhm.
a fun event, so serious event is coming real fast.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was gonna be like the Julie and Jamie in the hot tub thing, but it seems like
Hmm.
that's coming next week. But we pivot now. We get another box. So many boxes coming in the mail. And what I want to say is Julie is in her goddamn evening gown again. And
Yeah,
I need
what
to
is
know
that?
where this gown came from. I need to
Okay,
know. And I need to know, is this the second time she's wearing the gown? Or is the clip of her asking Tokyo to take a shower from this night? Or is she just wearing this gown just to wear it? Like, I
oh,
need to know.
so as you know, I didn't notice it the first time, but the first note I have in this section is, "Why is Julie in a gown?" So this is the same one that you were talking about
This is the
before.
same gown.
Yeah, what the is
So
she
I
at
wrote
fucking
in
prom?
caps, why is Julie in this gown again with 100
Yeah,
exclamation points? Why is she in a prom dress?
I
Why
put
is she in a
gown in
bride's
all
it's the
capitals.
bridesmaid's dress.
It is?
Why? It looks like it is. That's what
It
it looks
looks
like to
like
me.
something that, like, it came out of the Y2k box for prom. I
So that's what I was so I noticed it the first time I watched, and
Mhm,
I noticed that they took pants out the second time I watched when I went back to take
mhm,
notes that they took pants out of the box, and I was like,
mhm.
"Oh, did they throw, like, a prom dress in the box? Are we gonna see Julie pull out the
Yeah,
gown? Like, am I finally gonna get my answer to the gown?" No, I didn't. I just see randomly Julie again in a gown, and I really
mhm.
wanna know why.
Yeah, I'm perplexed.
I
That's not
tweeted
even
Melissa
comfortable
last time. I think I'm
description.
gonna tweet her again and see if she'll answer me this time and just, explain to me why Julie was wearing a full-on gown. Floor
Yeah.
length, evening gown.
You gotta catch her, like, when she's tweeting.
I
That's when
know.
she's most likely to you can't, like, throw it at her now if she's not tweeting. You gotta tweet
Yeah.
at her when she's tweeting, and you're more likely to get a
I feel
response.
like she tweets in the morning.
Yeah, she's like a 7 AM-er. Well,
Yeah,
7 AM Central Time.
yeah, my first meeting is at 8 AM tomorrow, so maybe I'll see if she's up already tweeting. Maybe I'll
Mhm,
tweet her after my 8 AM meeting and see if she gets back to me because I need to know. I need to know.
mhm.
So in the box, they get these paddles with their faces on them, and they get a game saying, "Who said that?" And to what I want to say is, "Who said that?" in Real Housewives style. Um, But they have to guess who made the quotes in this book called The Real World Unmasked. So Danny tells us, I think I had this book. I saw this book and I was like, I know what this book is. Like, I feel like I had it.
Mhm.
I have to go through all my old books from like when I was little to see, not little, but like young to see if it was in there. But that book cover looked very familiar to me. I feel like I had it. I don't know.
Mhm.
But Danny says that this book was used as kind of like a final moment for them to vent. They got sat down right as they were done filming to reflect on the experience. So some of them
Mhm.
used it as an opportunity to kind of like get their last few words in. So the first question that they get is I didn't write all of these quotes down, but basically the long and short of it was like, I'm about to be the most successful real worlder ever, like
Yeah.
ever. And they all say it's Tokyo. And Tokyo was like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. And he put his paddle up too, and it was Tokyo. And then Matt was like, I mean, I think we all wanted to be the most successful real world ever. And I'm like, that's not what the quote said, Matt. It said real worlder, like the most
Right.
successful person on the real world
Right,
ever.
okay, so I when I
And Matt
heard
was like,
that,
we all wanted to be the most successful real world. I'm like, no, that's not what it said.
I was so confused because I heard, like, real worlder, and then
Yes.
when Matt said that, I was like, "Oh, maybe I heard it wrong," because like, I was kinda, like, watching it in segments in between, like, my class I had to take for work today, so I was like it I took notes specifically so I would, like, make sure I was paying as much attention as I could, so I
Yeah.
thought I heard it. Okay,
No,
I
no.
feel so much better now that you're saying this because I was like, "I swear I heard this right."
Yeah, no, Matt, like, twisted it, and Tokyo was like, "It's ironic because I just went underground." So it, like, was
Mhm.
specifically about him, which was weird. Weird for Matt to, like, twist it. Um, then the next thing is that Matt's the most patient person and would make an incredible boyfriend. Used to think he was baby cute, but now I think he's cute cute. And everybody guessed Julie, but it was actually Melissa who said it. And she
Yeah,
was,
which
like,
is
embarrassed for
funny.
a few minutes, and Tokyo calls out that, I had Julie on my paddle, but the cutes in
Yeah.
succession had to be Melissa, and I was like, "You love Tokyo, man. Tokyo's the best."
Mhm.
And she basically was like, "Listen, you are patient and you're an incredible husband, so I'm just a sage." And I was like, "You know what? She is. She is."
I have to interrupt and say that, I pulled up Twitter and Melissa was my first tweet on my timeline, so I just tweeted at her
Yes.
to see if she'll reply.
She always replies to you. She never replies to me. So maybe she doesn't like me, which destroys
I
me.
tagged you in the tweet though.
Oh, amazing.
Oh no,
Amazing.
I didn't. Shit, I meant to.
Oh, it's all right.
If she replies, I'll tag you in it.
Okay.
And I said, "Hi, I'm in the middle of podcasting right now and have an important question. Why was Julie in that pink gown? Did she bring it?"
I need to know. I need to know.
Mhm.
Um,
Maybe you should
so then
reply and be like to the tweet and be like, "I need to know."
Yeah, maybe I'll reply and just be like, I have tweeted you about this before and I need an answer. I need an answer. Give me an answer. It makes me lose sleep at night to understand why she's in a fucking gown. I don't
Mhm.
understand. But it's the same gown. So that makes me think like I'm choosing to believe that the asking Tokyo to take a shower with her was that same night and not early on when they showed it to us because like why is she wearing this gown twice?
I mean, it's Julie. It's the only formal wear she brought. Everything else was like Lululemon leggings.
Yeah, exactly. And a formal gown, I guess. Seriously though, all she does is wear athleisure.
Mhm.
She hasn't brought any other clothes except for maybe an elegant gown. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Me
It's
neither.
bizarre. So the next quote is that Melissa does her eyebrows wrong and she needs to leave some hair on them so it doesn't look like she has skid marks, which is so fucking rude.
Mhm.
And they were all like, "Oh my god." Julie specifically was like, "Please God, don't let this be me that said it." And
But she
it
even
was
put the paddle up for herself,
oh,
though.
she did?
Like,
Oh, I
yeah,
didn't notice that. I
Julie
didn't notice that.
Julie put Julie up.
That's actually kind of funny. And it was Matt.
Yeah.
That's so rude. It's, like, more rude that it was Matt.
Mhm. Like,
Like,
very
for
much
you to comment
so.
on a woman's appearance, especially her eyebrows, is just so fucking rude. Like,
Maybe
Julie, I think,
because
would
he
still
was
be
seeing
rude, but
it
not
was like
as rude.
oh, sorry. Go ahead, say it one more time because I was interrupting you.
Oh, no, no, that's okay. I just said, like, Julie saying it would be rude, but, like, it's more rude coming from Matt, I feel.
Maybe they just looked worse to Matt through the orange glasses.
Right, like,
If
how
he
could you
just
even
took
see
them
straight?
off, that he would see that, like, I mean, that's kinda what happened. Like, that was just what
Yeah.
was going on, very skinny eyebrows back in the day.
Right, that's what everybody was doing back then.
Maybe Matt was just
Um,
ahead of, like, the eyebrow trends.
I
Maybe
don't think
Matt's,
Matt
like,
has
Matt's fetish is eyebrows, but he can't admit it.
oh,
I
maybe.
figured Matt out,
Maybe.
everybody.
Maybe.
I
Or
won't
maybe he
ask
really, like
Melissa that one, but
yeah, maybe he really liked skinny eyebrows back then and felt the need to insult her to kind of, like, repress himself.
Mhm.
But Melissa says he spoke the truth. Everyone was like, "Oh, Matt, like,
Yeah.
ouch." And then she was like, "No, he spoke the truth." And she's like, "But I grew him back. I grew the
Mhm.
motherfuckers back."
Mhm.
Um, then we get some random, like, Buddhist notion quote, and
I didn't
everybody was
even
all like, "Jamie." Like,
yeah.
I don't even know. It was about, like, Julie leaving her, like, coming through on the other side of her religion or something like that. And, like, without even finishing it, everyone's like, "Well, it's Jamie."
I literally wrote down something about Julie and Buddha. Like, that was how I wrote down what this
Yeah.
quote was about because I wasn't gonna rewind, and I knew it was just
No,
I like, that's what
it's
I
who
caught from
cares?
it.
Yeah, just nonsense. And then the next one is it's hard for me to get to know Danny. I'm positive and upbeat, and Danny is negative, doesn't enjoy it when I pointed out to him the bright side. And once again, shady ass Matt. It's fucking Matt, which is so rude. Again, I'm
Mhm.
just like, this guy really, really was like dragging people when everybody else seemed to just like, I don't know, say nice things. I mean, not nice things, but like reflective things, and he's just
Yeah.
rude. Um,
I mean, it kind of
so
tracks, though, because, like, if you think of it, Matt went into the house, and we've talked about it. He was he tolerated people who are different than him at best. And
I would
so
yeah,
if
I don't even know if he did that much. He
I'm
existed.
yeah, like, he didn't accept by any means. So
Right.
I think, like, but he also didn't, like, cause drama over it. Like, he hurt people's feelings. So I think that
Mhm.
he tolerated at best. And so take it as him, like, leaving this house, and he's no longer surrounded by these people, and it's evident that he didn't grow from this situation, that, like, this is his first instance to kind
Yep.
of, like, sound off, and, like, his reflection is like, "Oh shit, I changed, like, my views, or, like, I was accommodating in my views to accept these people, but, like, this is what I really think of them," that, like, this doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good call. I think you're right. Um, yeah, I think you're right. But this leads us into our sexuality conversation. And Danny immediately was like, I mean, can you imagine not thinking of the bright side after you're telling me not to act on my sexual inclination? And he like goes
Mhm,
there right away. And good for Danny. Like Matt's full of bullshit most of the
mhm.
time. And the way that he treated Danny was like honestly hateful back then. Like that is some hateful shit that he was saying. And so we get this package of Matt basically thinking that there's something wrong with being gay. He basically just says like I'm learning, but he says to Danny in I've never before seen clip that Danny has to pray to God And
Mhm.
Danny is basically saying like, so you think I need to fix this or whatever. I didn't write down like their
Mhm.
exact words. And he's like, I think you just like need to pray to God for help every day or something like that. And it's like
Mhm.
basically like conversion therapy vibes that he's giving.
Yes.
And I'm just like, bro, this shit is bullshit right now, what you're doing.
Mhm.
Um, and Danny says, Matt basically told me I wasn't allowed to have my sexuality for his entire life. And like, that's fucked up.
Mhm.
Um, and then we get Matt in the producer thing that we've seen in the preview many times of the producer asking, we break the fourth wall of saying like, do you think being gay is wrong? Essentially, do you think it's a sin to be gay? And he says, I'm not a judge. We're just here to love each other. And the producer doubles down and was like, well, do you have the same outlook that you had back then? And then Matt's like, I answered the question. I think we're done here. I answered the question, and like takes a sip. Very Erica Jane of him from last
Mhm.
week. And that's kind of where we leave off. And I'm just done with Matt. I'm done with Matt. And I think we talked about this a little bit of like Julie got a lot of the heat back then, rightfully so, and a lot of the heat this time, really rightfully so.
Mhm.
But Matt is just as bad, if not worse, than
Mhm.
Julie, because I truly believe that Julie doesn't come forward with like hate in her heart. I think
Mhm.
it's more like she's just an ignorant
Yes.
asshole, which is not okay. I'm not saying that's okay, but the onus should be on her to learn and not be ignorant. Like ignorance is not excusable, especially in the year 2022. As Melissa has said, like we all have motherfucking Google, like look it up.
Mhm.
Matt doesn't want to change, doesn't want
Mhm.
to learn, has never wanted to change or learn. And I truly feel like beliefs like this are filled with hate and lead to such horrible things that we've seen happen in this country. Like the
Mhm.
beliefs like this lead to shootings at gay nightclubs and lead to horrible things that happen to, in black neighborhoods, which has happened
Mhm.
in Buffalo. I'm not saying
Mhm.
Matt is a racist in that way. I don't know that Matt has really like shown us that he's a racist, but I think having that type of hate in your heart for people who are different than you
Mhm.
is dangerous. And Matt has some dangerous fucking views.
Mhm. Yeah, he masks it with like the I'm not a judge. We're here to love each other. And
Yeah, but
so,
you don't love these people.
right, it's you can't love Danny if you aren't going to accept everything about Danny.
Exactly.
You can't love the parts of him that you agree with and then try to ignore or encourage him to change the parts that you don't. And I agree, and that was, like, one of my stronger stances is that, like, Matt got away with it in that original season because he wasn't as vocal or, like, curious as Julie, where again, like, I agree with your wording entirely, like, with Julie, I think it's ignorant, like, I where Matt, it's purposeful. He has his beliefs, there is no way to change them because you don't if you don't change or consider like other perspectives after an experience like being on the real world, what there's nothing that's going to change your mind.
Exactly. Especially after hearing what Danny and Paul went through and
Mhm.
seeing firsthand the fear that they had to live in their lives back then and how it's impacted Danny even today. You could see when he sits on the couch and talks about Paul that he gets rigid, and you could see that he gets tense and anxious and that he has CPTSD. It's like you can still sit in this confessional and not be able to say like, no, I've grown, and like I realize that love is love and this is okay, and like I shouldn't judge anybody for being different than me. No, he can't even bring himself to say that. And I think that's like just truly disgusting. I think it's disgusting. And not to say that Julie is not also dangerous. Julie is dangerous as well. Julie is the type of person who will like be out in a park with a black man bird watching in Central Park and who says, put your dog on a leash and call the fucking cops. Like that's the type of
Mhm.
person Julie is, which is very dangerous. Matt is dangerous in like a different way where he just like, I feel like he thinks that he's leading with like love and God and acceptance, but like actually you're just like fostering hate and like feeling and making people feel like they're less than you or being different than you is going to send people to hell, which is like different,
Mhm.
dangerous in a whole different way.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely.
Matt sucks.
Yep. And it looks like we're going to get more of it next week.
We sure are. And that's where we leave off. I mean, anything Anything else that we didn't talk about in this episode? Anything in the preview that we want to talk about? It
I
seems like
mean,
we get some Kelly stuff next week about like her talking about like people that she hooked up with in the past.
yeah, and which is kind of, like, hypocritical to me that she was the one that asked Jamie and
Yes,
Julie
she
point
did.
blank, like, "Did you guys hook up?" And then we're seeing in the next episode that she doesn't wanna talk about who she hooked up with, and it's like, anyone you hooked up with is less monumental than those 2 hooking up, so, like, if they're gonna talk about it, then and you're gonna be the one to ask the question, to me, that seems hypocritical that you are sitting there being like, "I don't feel comfortable with this," and, like, why
Agree.
did you same conversation with 2 other people? Um, I am interested in seeing what causes Matt to say that he's a broken man right now, like, um, what specifically encourages that comment, because I think that we can assume a lot of things, but, um, I'd be interested to see what exactly is causing him to say that. So I'm looking forward to next week. Maybe we'll get a bit more Kelly or even like a I don't think we're going to get like a Tokyo heavy episode next week based off the preview, but
Yeah, which is a crime.
yeah, maybe we're going to get like the Kelly episode next week, the Tokyo one the week after, and then it's going to be the final episode. Like if I were to guess how the rest of this is going to go down.
I'm so upset that it's so close to being over.
Mhm.
This is episode 5, so we have 6, 7, and 8 left. Yeah. Yeah, next week probably will be the Kelly episode. I think we got like a little bit of a Tokyo episode and maybe the second episode where we kind of got like the flashback to his house and he's in the thrift store and he's showing us his creative process.
Yeah,
But
but he's
I think we
dynamic
need
enough to
more.
deserve more. Yeah, exactly. Like, Kelly doesn't show up for half the shit. Matt's busy praying, like doing his own thing. Um, we gave Jamie his time. He has not become any more interesting than he was 20 years ago. So like, let's if we're gonna be Julie and make good TV, then like put on the people that are more dynamic. So I'm hoping we get more of a Tokyo episode in these last couple.
We
But Kelly
probably
hasn't had hers yet, so I think that's due.
yeah, and I think now that I think about it, you're probably right about the Tokyo episode because we do get the "Come on, be my baby tonight" recording session,
Mm,
so that's probably a Tokyo-centric episode, I
right,
would think.
right.
Um, which is great. Maybe we'll get some Elton if he still works at the public broadcast. I would love to see what
Oh, that'd
Elton's
be
up to
fun.
these days. I Googled him and I couldn't really find anything because he looks so familiar to me,
Mhm.
that I'm just like, I feel like this guy's, like, famous or something. I don't know. I don't know. Um but okay, I mean, this is a good episode. I think every week has been great for different reasons. I think this was a good one because we got to see them like have a little bit of fun with each other. It was still funny and dynamic, and we got to like just cringe and laugh at Julie being just a hot mess,
Mhm.
as we do. But it was like not offensive this week, so it was like more fun to laugh at. Um, yeah, and then we only have 3 left to go, which I'm
I
really sad
know.
about. Really sad. Well, Carrie, if there's nothing else, where can everyone find you on these internet streets?
Oh, it's funny because that's exactly how we said it last night on the
Really? Oh,
challenge
that's funny.
podcast, and, like, I went last, and so Jason said it that way, Josie Ann said it that way, and I was like, "I'm more of like an internet cul-de-sac, like, I'm a dead
Okay.
end over here, like, you gotta turn
Alright.
around." Um, swing through, maybe, like, trick or treat at my house, and then, like, don't ever come back. Um,
That's
so
hilarious.
I am on the big 4, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Venmo at KGD26.
I forgot about the Venmo shout out.
Um, so my Twitter right now is a lot of just, like, me retweeting all of the tweets that I put up on Silent Podcast about all the podcasts that I'm on currently. So if you're interested in hearing me talk more, which, like, if that is your thing, you're a special breed. I appreciate you. Um, I've got a lot going on at the moment. So we've got our weekly Stop Being Polite podcast on Wednesdays about the real world. And then we just did our first episode last night of arguably my favorite named podcast yet, TJ Hates Quitters. We did the first 2 episodes last night, but from here on out, we're going to be on Thursdays covering All-Star Challenge or the Challenge All-Stars 3. This is a
I
good
wanna give
season
you
so
oh,
far.
sorry.
Go, no, no, keep going, keep going.
I want to give you props on the graphic. I assume you made the graphic.
I made it.
And I saw it on YouTube last night and I was like, this looks fucking good. So and Matt, my boyfriend, was like, that is good. So I was like, that was Kari. I can tell.
That is like gonna be the nicest thing anyone says to me all week. I sent it to Josie Ann first. I was like, tell me you're proud of me, and even if you aren't, just lie to me because I can't have it otherwise.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great.
I like looked, I like Googled like the challenge font, which someone said it's like it's kind of like hand done of like a certain font, but impact is basically the same, but Canva doesn't have impact. So then I searched impact
Oh
on
my God.
Canva and this one came up and I'm like, this is good enough. But yeah, I'm really happy with the title. I think it's funny. And the podcast last night was good. It was also funny. We're coming back tomorrow. I think it's gonna be the same crew, but it's also gonna be like a rotating cast of people. So you might see Katie on there soon. You might get some other guests coming on soon. But yeah, it's gonna be every Thursday. And then Josie Ann and I cover The Circle on Alert Alert, and that is twice a week because we do 2 episodes at a time as opposed to like all 4, because that would be like a 4-hour thing, and that's just a lot to talk. So we're gonna cover episodes 9 and 10 tomorrow, and then I think 11 and 12 on Monday for this week's coverage. And last but not least, we got the Real Housewives coverage. If you're looking for a marathon of coverage, we did 5 episodes worth of Housewives on Monday. We talked a lot about the Housewives. So we covered
Yes, we did.
the
5
first 2
episodes.
reunion New Jersey episodes. We did episodes 2 and 3 of this new Atlanta season, and the premiere of Beverly Hills will be coming up this weekend with New Jersey, Atlanta, and Beverly Hills coverage again. So I am all over the internet right now in terms of podcasting. And if you like any of those things, check them out.
Yeah. Kari's doing a lot. She's
Oh
holding
my
all this work
gosh.
on her entire shoulders.
Did you see Valencia's comment?
I did.
Okay, so what happened was, I was doing the banners, right? And so I went to say like, "Okay, Josiane, tell us where," and I clicked yours.
Oh,
Instead, I'm like,
that's funny.
"I just miss Katie so much."
Oh my God,
And
that's really funny.
Josiane like played into it too. She's like, "It is an honor that you confused me for
Oh,
Katie."
Josie.
She's like, "You can follow me at Real Slim Katie
Oh
and
my
on
God, that's
Twitch
so
with the
funny.
underscore." Like she like knew all your shit. It was so good. It was so
Oh,
good.
shout out to Josie.
So
Follow her too if you don't. She's a queen.
yeah, follow Josiane. There you go.
Yes, follow
Josiane
Josiane.
XNM on all the
On
things
all
you
the
need to
social
follow
media
her
that
on.
matters. That's what I know she says that.
So it was funny. I clicked yours and she just like ran with it.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, good segue. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealSlimKatie. I don't do much on Instagram, but I am on Twitter. I'm trying to like curb my tweets a little bit because like the world is going to shit, and I just don't want to be like doom and gloom Twitter all the time. So I'm trying to curb it. But I'm on there if you would like to follow me. And you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/RealSlimKatie with an underscore at the end, as Josiane told you all last night on the Challenge podcast. And I play some cozy games, some low key, cozy, easy stuff, nothing serious, very casual. We talk about a lot of stuff there. Reality TV, regular TV, life, work, friends, fam, all the things. It's just a very chill, casual vibe. So feel free to stop by there, drop a follow if you would like to. It is free to do so. It's not like a subscription thing where you have to subscribe. And yeah, as Kari said, you can find us on the Cool Water Show talking about all things in the Real Housewives universe. And starting next week, breaking news. I'm a big Star Wars nerd. If you can't tell, all of this art on my walls is like Star Wars traditional tattoo art. And Obi-Wan is starting next week, which I am extremely, extremely excited about. So we are going to start talking about that. Myself, Naomi, and Isaiah starting to talk about the scripted show Obi-Wan on Disney Plus. Really, honestly, like counting down the days until that starts. I cannot wait. And I'm thinking about doing just like a retrospective of where we are now with Obi-Wan and like doing like a whole nerdy deep dive, but I haven't gotten confirmation that everybody's available yet for that. So that'll be coming. Probably starting soon, maybe not next week immediately, but maybe over the weekend or whatever, whenever we can find time to record. So look out for that if you are into Star Wars. And look out for potentially some new voices on Silent Podcasts. We put out some feelers. We got a lot of really great responses. So we're chatting with a few folks to see, how we can kind of fit them into the network. So really excited about that. And you can also follow Silent Podcasts. Where do I? Oh, perfect. You got it queued up for me. On social media. So you can find us on Twitch at Silent Podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at Silent_podcasts. You can find us on YouTube at Silent Podcasts. And you can find us anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. So Apple, iTunes, whatever podcast app. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on all like the third-party apps you use too, and on Anchor. And feel free to leave us a rating or a review. We read them. We love them. We're open to your feedback. So yeah, that's about it.
But only rate 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, then give your 4
Yes,
or
please.
3-star review somewhere else. Somewhere else that needs it more
Yeah,
than we
yeah.
do.
We need the 5 stars. It'll help people discover us. We're really trying to like bring Silent Podcasts into the next phase of just, being super consistent and throwing out content for you guys. And we're excited about it. So
Mhm.
until next time, I'm gonna play the video. I'm gonna take Jason's. We'll play us out. Kari, any parting words?
No, I don't record again for another 22 hours, so I'll miss you while I'm gone.
I don't know how you do it. It's a lot. It's a lot.
All the shows I watch came out within a week of each other.
I know
Like,
Wednesdays are a tough day. Everything
everything
is
comes
on
out on Wednesday,
Wednesdays. Yeah, it's
everything.
tough. It's tough.
So, yeah, but I mean, The Circle is almost done already. I think we have this week and next week, and then it's gonna be over. It's,
Yeah.
like, just a very heavy month, and so things will calm down a little bit, and then, like, this is done in 3 weeks, unfortunately, so,
Yeah.
um but for now, you just get an overwhelming amount of me.
We love it.
Hmm,
Well, thank you
someday.
guys. If you listen to Kari, you'll see her tomorrow. And if you don't, then you should. Otherwise, we'll just see you next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you.